Rory talks about his issues with Queenzflip.
I thought it was weird that he said we were suckers, and I told G Money and I told Ghost. I got no
Yeah.
issue with Flip. I've never had an issue with Flip. I've been supportive of Flip my whole entire pod career.
Did he call you suckers like directly, or was it just like
Yeah,
if it
he
applied?
said.
Oh,
He
Yeah, he
said.
went at it.
I'm not gonna say the other word he said, but he said you used to have sucker up here.
oh, okay, I remember that.
I would always talk to Flip. I've been nothing but supportive of Flip since we were doing the pod in Totowa. Like that's how far I've been supporting Flip and G Money. I'd always talk to Flip. I would definitely talk to Flip. I've been told G Money. I
What,
fuck
Maul
with
talked to Flip?
I don't know. I'm not going to speak for Maul,
You've been
but
noticing. You
but
watched the J.
I would talk to Flip all day. Like if Flip want to come on now, I'd happily have a conversation with him.
Is he on the pod?
I'm fine with the COE because I know what that is because I pay attention. I just never liked the sucker. I thought that was weird. Like you don't like what the.
But don't you think he kind of just used that whole break? Because I know myself, it's very profitable to talk about y'all breakup. You don't think he may have just used that to um just do engagement?
Sure. I just think it's
Yeah,
a
but
little
Ro-
too close to home. Where it's like, what are we talking about? I've been nothing but positive to what you've been doing. So I didn't like that, but I mean, I don't know. A year and a half later, 2 years, Flip also said nice things on Twitter. I meet everybody at who they are now. That's where I'm at. Especially since I had a kid, I just meet people at where they are.
Have you noticed his
Like
absence?
I don't think this is no. Of course, have I met? No, I don't. No, I don't know what his absence is doing.
No, I'm saying
I'm
his
talking. I'm
absence
talking about
from.
shit from like 3 years.
you don't watch
ago.
the show?
Yeah, you watched the show. Have you noticed his absence the previous
I
2
do
weeks?
not. I can promise you, on my daughter, I do not watch the show.
That's right. On a recent Twitter space, Rory discussed some of the things that went on between him and Queenzflip. Well, if you don't remember, when Queenzflip first joined the Joe Budden podcast, he seemed to want to ingratiate himself with Joe Budden by trashing Rory and Maul. He would regularly say that he's not like other people that was in the studio acting like they made the podcast. Hell, he even said he's not like the suckers who used to be up there talking about none other than Rory and Maul. Yes, Flip went on Instagram Live saying that he wasn't talking about them, but I don't think that was true, and he's not going to misdirect me. Well, Rory seemed to have taken issue with what Queenzflip said and basically outlined how he was one of Flip's biggest supporters, and even in the past has hinted that Joe might have not really supported Flip like that. But what do you guys think? Do you feel like Rory is justified in his issues with Queenzflip? I mean, Rory even said that he reached out to folks like Space Ghosts and G Money to address the issue, so it looks like it really bothered Rory. And we gotta look back. You know, when Flip got there, when Flip first arrived at the Joe Budden podcast, I think he used the whole Rory and Maul situation to make it look like he was a different breed. And now, if you look at how things are playing out, I think his words might come back to haunt him. I mean, look at this tweet here. He still seems to be taking shots at Rory and Maul. Hey, yo, don't waste my time reaching out to me. I would never want a situation by kicking someone's back in. Wrong. No disrespect to anyone who took that route. It's beneficial. It's not my bag. So, is Flip hinting at Rory and Maul when they exited the Joe Budden podcast? You know, they went on a tirade against their former business partner, hinting at some shoddy business practices. But it's important to remember, at least from my perspective, that Joe was the first person to truly go nuclear on episode 437, making Rory out to be some type of slimy white man trying to break up a relationship between men of color like Maul and Joe Budden, and also making Maul out to be some couch surfing loser who cycles between NBA players and tries to find ways to live in other people's houses. But after this space, somebody might have hit up Flip because he would tweet later about Rory and Maul and say, I don't know why, but my homie just called me about 10 minutes ago and asked me if I had issues with Rory and Maul. My answer was no. Those guys have supported Flip the Script, and I said if it was an issue, I will say their name. Their support was and is appreciated. So, what we have here is Flip distancing himself from some of the shots he took at Rory and Maul. But, I mean, it's hard to put the toothpaste back in the tube. You know, it's just facts. I saw Queenzflip's rise in the Joe Budden podcast. He would mention Rory and Maul a ton. He would use them to bolster his numbers from improper improv. He would set out whole ISOs. He even thought that his trajectory in the Joe Budden podcast was different. I remember this debate he had with Joe where he was like, I'm different than other people because I actually created something of value here. And he was talking about improper improv. And I think he was referencing how Rory and Maul never brought something new to the network. So he had some type of different setup. Interesting to see. I know Rory previously, a while back, said it was corny when Flip attacked Maul. Remember when Flip said that some dude was living on his couch, some fat dude was living there. It was something like that. And he was clearly talking about Maul. And Flip would go on his podcast and say that bloggers are trying to pit each other against each other and duck accountability when it came to some of the things, some of the actions he took in the form of COE, content over everything. But I don't think Flip ever really had an issue with Rory and Maul. I think he was just being a manipulator. I mean, he willingly says he likes to manipulate people, and I believe he was manipulating that situation to manipulate Joe, but Joe's a way better manipulator than Flip. So it was a manipulation off. And I do think, like I said before, Flip's words will come back to haunt him when he eventually falls out with Joe Budden. They are going to fall out. I'm being more and more convinced that these two are distancing themselves from each other. They're on Twitter taking shots at each other, Joe and Flip. And I don't care what anyone says. I don't care what people say about my platform, say that I'm reaching. It's BS, man. In the history of the Joe Budden podcast, nobody has missed 4 episodes without a valid reason. Melissa Ford missed a bunch of episodes because she was filming her show. But Flip missing 4 episodes, and on top of that, he's doing his own content. And on top of that, he's tweeting about Rory and Maul. Then you got Imani talking about, I hate conspiracies. Well, why do you hate conspiracies? Why do you hate conspiracy videos if they don't really matter? If there was no conspiracy, if there was nothing going on, it should be totally okay. So that's something we just got to monitor. All right, y'all. I want to end this video by saying follow me on Twitter Spaces. Really follow me on Twitter because it's been pretty dope. I mean, I've been doing a lot of spaces with different forms of people, different forms of podcasters. They seem to really enjoy the space format, not just in my spaces, but in general. I think there's a bit of an organic thing. Taxstone returned, and his spaces kind of feel like tax season again, which is pretty cool. And sometimes I wonder if Joe might feel like his thunder is being stolen, because he used to be the belle of the ball, right? He used to be the person who would be able to get massive numbers on Twitter Spaces, and as of late, that's not necessarily the case. I saw yesterday he entered the space and there was like 100 people there, and then there was a space with Taxstone, Maul, and Rory, and that was way more people in there. Talking about like 600, 700. The Taxstone space even got to 1,000 at one point, and I don't know. There's just, at least in the Twitter world, there's folks thinking that Tax spaces are a little bit more fun in terms of the way Tax interacts with people. And just as an observer myself, I do think Tax has a bit of an organic feel, a little less performative. I'm not saying Joe's trash or nothing like that. I'm not saying he's terrible. I still think Joe is one of the best podcasters, best entertainers of all time. But I do notice that Tax's form of the way he talks to people is a bit more personable. You know, it's not as arrogant. It's not as manipulative in terms of trying to make people feel uncomfortable. You know, Joe goes on spaces, he pits different people against each other, and there's a ceiling to that. You make enemies, and people start to kind of feel a type of way about you. Joe doesn't give that to people. Tax does. And I just wonder if Joe cares about that. I wonder if he gives that any thought. But that's my video for today. Let me know what you think about Rory and Queenzflip. Kind of sucks because I feel like Rory really not looked up to Queenzflip, but I think he appreciated Queenzflip and the content he made. Rory actually watches Queenzflip's content. Like, it's not fake love. Like, he watches his stuff. And then you get Queenzflip, he goes on the show and immediately starts taking shots at Rory. It's got to be tough, especially when you're someone who bigged up Flip on the podcast before, and then he gets around certain people and it's like, throw Rory under the bus season. But that's my video for today. Follow me on Instagram, The Stop TV. Follow me on Twitter, The Stop TV. This is Danny from The Stop. Peace.